quarter-century has seen a spike in close encounters of the first kind.
Oh my God, that's one ship.
No. Told ya. I seen them last night.
And some are revealing eerily similar patterns. In May of 1997, Chad Granoski was living with his parents on the southern shore of Lake Oneida in upstate New York.
On the night, I looked out through the kitchen window and I noticed 3 lights up in the sky that, seemed a little peculiar. My dad, he was in the Navy. He knew right away that those weren't anything he's ever seen as far as an airplane. And that's when we ended up getting the video recorder out and started to record. First, there were 3 glowing orbs, and then there were 5. We had up to 12 different lights across the sky right through there. It took 3 to 5 hours, and it was over the course of 2 days.
More than 100 witnesses called into the local authorities that night to report the strange lights from up to 3 hours away.
A lot of skeptics will point to this being military flares. In fact, the local military base declared that it was flares. But are they?
So all those people that really thought they were having experience and really wanted answers completely were shunned by the community that didn't have that experience and told that it wasn't true.
A few days later, my dad and I were at work, and my mom called frantic. She said that a large all-black helicopter with a black disc on it was going up and down on the shoreline. And as it went over the houses, it was causing, it seemed to be like an electronic disturbance, like the fire alarm was going off, various electronics. We don't know if it was searching for something or it was emitting something, a magnetic signal or something, trying to erase the tape.
Desperate for answers, the concerned residents clamored for information about any recent helicopter activity at nearby Griffiths Air Force Base.
They kind of gave us the laugh about that they don't have black unmarked helicopters, and they didn't believe the story.
You have to ask yourself, is there some kind of cover-up happening? Are they trying to jam communications, erase video? Clearly, somebody was watching.
What made this sighting even more compelling is that it occurred only months after the famous case in Phoenix, Arizona.
In March of 1997, thousands of people throughout Phoenix saw strange lights passing over the city. To this day, it remains the largest mass UFO sighting in U.S. history. More than a decade later, Ben Hansen interviewed witnesses who remembered their close encounters like it was yesterday.
I was on I-60. I was driving home from work, and I saw this huge boomerang-shaped craft flying towards me. I slammed on the brakes. I jumped out of my truck as it came up over me. It was about 30 feet over my head. And I remember thinking I could hit this with a rock. It was a gunmetal gray, and there was like thousands and thousands of thumbprints in it. It just meandered, this huge craft that took up 70% of the horizon. And out of that poured what looked like lava. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna get burned, because I was that close to it. And I stood there, and as it passed by, and I watched it till it went out of sight, I just started crying. It was overwhelming. And that has stuck with me from that day, from that moment.
As with the upstate New York encounter, officials quickly tried to dismiss the Phoenix lights as flares set off during a military exercise.
That's typically the comeback I'll hear if I say, I saw the Phoenix lights. People say, oh, those were flares. I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force in Vietnam. One of our missions was dropping aerial flares. So I've actually dropped those aerial flares and been on the ground while we're being attacked, having the flares overhead. They weren't flares.
That was a slap in the face.
Possessing footage of UFOs can even make you a target. There are just 3 videos in existence of the Phoenix Lights event, and all the owners have been harassed by the US government, the so-called Men in Black. One cameraman even mysteriously disappeared. Chad remembers the night someone came looking for his family's tape of the Oneida Lake Lights.
I was laying in bed and I was facing the windows, and I rolled over because I thought, it felt like somebody was in the room, like there was a presence. And I heard a noise, and there was a tall gentleman, looked like he had a hat, and he was mumbling. And I'm like, what do you want? He said, I want the tape. I want the tape. And he kept saying it, the tape, the tape. I sat up, and the dog in my parents' room, I remember he moved because I could hear the collar jingle, and the guy turned quickly and looked, and then darted out of the room down the hall. And I was like, whoa, what just happened?
Seeing a massive ship overhead is terrifying enough. But what one military flight instructor observed over the skies of Leland, North Carolina in 2014 has filled him with dread to this day. He's chosen to remain anonymous, but did send the footage of his bizarre encounter to MUFON, the world's largest network for documenting unexplained encounters.
It was, I believe, the night after the full moon in May. I was looking through the goggles and noticed a plane coming toward me from the north, heading south. Of course, I've seen planes through night vision goggles. You can hear planes at 5,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet. This thing was low and slow and silent. It made no sense to me. The last weird thing I noticed was that when I took the goggles down for a second to get a bearing as to where it was in the sky, I couldn't see any of the lights, not the fixed lights, not the single blinking light.
Ben has analyzed the video over and over again.
We have something very, very interesting here. As the object is cruising along, there is a point where one of these stars seems like it passes through the object. How is that even possible? Well, it's either 3 lights, 3 orbs traveling together in a very rigid formation, or there's something else going on, and we might be looking at cloaking technology.
Close encounters of the first kind make up the largest number of UFO encounters by far, and can be terrifying.